Metal and the culture surrounding it has also appeared in Rolling Stone, The Guardian, The Atlantic, NPR, The Telegraph, Pitchfork, Spin, Stereogum, The Village Voice, Decibel, and many more. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Kim and Lita.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, I want a wireless mic. Just kidding.
Thank you so much for being here. Everyone's so stoked.
I'm thrilled, man. It's my first book. I can't believe it.
Yes.
What took you so long to write the damn thing?
I couldn't find anybody that could relate to Woman in a Rock Band. The co-authors were not getting it. So I did it myself pretty much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Pretty much with the help of HarperCollins, of course, behind me.
Wow.
It comes out tomorrow, right? Officially comes out
Yes,
tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's a big day. Party time.
It was delayed for a little while, right? It took you a little while to get this thing out there.
It's been delayed, yeah. It was delayed a few times.
But finally,
Yeah.
the day's come.
But it had to be right. I didn't want it to come out unless it was absolutely perfect.
Sounds typical of you. So going back, way back to the Runaways, the thing that really struck me when I was reading this book is how your parents were so down with what you were doing. Like, you were 16, you were in Hollywood, you were like fully immersed in the rock and roll life, and your mom and dad were like, cool. Like, how did you get away with all the stuff you got away with?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know how they put up with me, to tell you the truth. They were really, really supportive. They were my friends. They were my fans. They were always cheering me on and always asking me to play them. Oh, Lita played the Black Sabbath.
How this accent?
My mother she was from Rome, born and bred in Rome, and my father was from London, so he spoke with a very thick British accent. And they were just the best. I was very, very blessed, very lucky to have parents like that.
I especially love the story about how your mom met David Bowie.
Wow.
Could you tell us about that?
Well, it was in New York City, and we had gone to an awards show. There was Tina Turner and Keith Richards. All the greats were there getting awards, and I was getting my hair and makeup done and changing my clothes and getting ready to present. And my mother just lost my father. He just passed away. So I took my mother with me on various dates and shows that I would do. So she was with me in New York. And she disappeared while I was getting my hair and makeup done. She was bored. Like, I've seen her do this more than once. I'm gonna go walk around and say hi to everybody. So I get my hair and makeup done, everything, I'm dressed and all ready to present, and my mom is gone. I gotta go find her. And I find her sitting on a sofa next to David Bowie. Of course. And I said, I walked up to her and I remember my voice cracked. I went, Mom! What are you doing? She says, oh, Lita, I was just talking to Dave. He wanted an orange juice. And I thought, oh my God, does she know who she's sitting next to? And she says to me, Lita, he wanted an orange juice. So I get him an orange juice, and David looks at me up and down. He looks at my shoes, and he looks at my pants. He looks at my shirt and up at my hat. I had on this great big hat. And he says, is this your daughter? And she says, yeah, Dave, that's Lita. He says, do you always let her dress like that? She says, yeah, Dave, that's rock and roll. Best.
You write about her in the book so lovingly and so beautifully, and she was clearly a huge influence in your life. Do you think having such a strong, positive female influence early on helped you sort of develop the armor that you needed for all the craziness that came later?
Absolutely. absolutely. My father was, I could call him in 4 o'clock in the morning and say, Dad, I'm too drunk to drive, come and get me. And he would say, okay, where are you? I have to figure out where I was and the address. And he would come and get me and never ask, my father or my mother would never ask where I was, who I was with. What are you doing? Why do you smell like cigarettes and other stuff? And why, they would never ask. So they just supported me. And my mother would say, she would go to work at 4 in the morning because she worked at a big, huge medical center. And I would just be coming home. We would cross paths and she would say, you lucky, you get to go to bed. I've got to go to work. Aww. So I just had the best parents. But it does add for confidence later in life, to perform, as you all probably know. It's good to have somebody backing you.
So many kids don't get that. Like, my dad still can't figure out what I actually do. It's been like 13 years. But, as long as you're not asking for money, they're fine, right? So in the book, I love the way you talk about your guitar playing. One of the things that hit me early on in the book, you're talking about how you never saw anything strange about the fact that you wanted to shred. Like, you're into heavy metal and heavy rock. It was the most natural thing in the world that you wanted to play, like Tony Iommi. It seemed like it took other people a little while to catch on to that, though.
Yeah, it did. It became a neighborhood gathering. People would come over to my house and sit and watch me play. And I used to think, what's the big deal? I don't get it. And, they would say, oh, play that riff again. And I would play it. And they would say, how do you do that? And I would just go, like this, and play it. And nobody really could wrap their head around it. And I couldn't figure out why. It's like, why can't you do it? I don't get it. So then, the Runaways came along.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your Sweet 16? I remember you had a great story about that in the book.
Oh, God. That was the weirdest thing. I used to ditch school because I hated school.
Yeah, me too.
I was like, man, anything to get out of going to school. So I would figure out different ways to get out of school. Every day I would write myself a note or worry about it later or something. And I had gone to this school that was full of musicians. There was just all musicians. And it was a bad school. It was like gangs, fights. There was bars. You had to go through a metal detector to get into this school. My parents didn't want me to go to this school, but I had to go because it was full of musicians. So I used to take the bus all the way down into the really bad part of Long Beach. And that's where I hung out with my friends who would come over, and we formed this little band. And we played at my 16th birthday party, which was in my driveway. Well, the police showed up, and about 250 people that I didn't know showed up. It turned into a block party.
All right.
It was awesome. So my mother was playing cards, and she says, I can't hear anything. Because the music was so loud. The table was shattering, and glasses were from the music. A police officer shows up, and he knew my mother from the medical center. So he says, is your daughter? And she says, yeah, it's Lita. It's her band. And he said, well, if it's your daughter, it's okay. Then you can play until midnight.
All right.
So we got to jam until midnight. My father came home from his fishing trip, cracked open a beer, and joined in the party.
All right.
It's a hell of a first show.
16th birthday party. Rocked.
Now, it's been a long time since that first show, and you've done a hell of a lot of things, and you're back on tour. Like, you start up again next month, right? With
Yes.
Hailstorm. Right. Now, I remember reading about with you in the Runaways. You were on tour in like a janky old station wagon or something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's pushing. That's probably a little different now, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is a lot different.
What's the biggest difference now that you've noticed since touring, back in the day and touring now? Like, you didn't really have iPhones back then. There's got to be other things, right?
Oh, God. Thank God there was no YouTube back then. I would be up in trouble. Back then, I don't know. Well, growing up in the Runaways, actually, it was the first tour we ever did was with the Ramones.
Yeah.
I didn't go to graduation, high school graduation. My father went and picked up my diploma because I was on tour with the Ramones.
Nice. Awesome.
So they would put chicken wire up in front of the stage because people would throw handfuls of change at the Ramones. And all kinds of like beer bottles and other stuff that you just don't do anymore.
Yes.
And then the punk scene, there was the spitting, where everybody would spit and you could see it flying through the air. Everybody would just hawk loogies on you. And that was cool. That was considered cool. So I learned to spit back.
Yeah, one of your fights, you cocked a pretty mean loogie at this one girl. What was she doing?
Oh, one girl, it was a guy actually. He had a beer.
That's me.
And he was standing right in front of me and he was gonna shake the beer and open it on me because he thought, I'm gonna get this girl, I'm gonna make her mess up, or I don't know what he was trying to do. But he didn't know that I saw him with this beer. And I was waiting for him to get it right perfect and hold it up. And I kicked his wrist right there. I just went wham with these big old honking high boots that I had on.
Fuck yeah.
And his beer went and it went flying backwards over the crowd of people. I think I broke his wrist.
Yeah.
You had it coming.
He did.
When you were starting out, you mentioned there's a lot of focus on your looks, because like you're a babe. Can you remember a time when, like, the moment, or like the time in your life when people finally just started focusing on your guitar playing and realizing that you weren't just a pretty girl, you're a fucking shredder?
Oh boy. It wasn't that long ago, actually. It took a while. I would watch people's faces just mesmerized. You weren't quite sure what they were thinking. Mouths open, blank look on their face, watching you play. It's just the coolest thing. It just makes you want to play harder. Shove that guitar in their face.
Right. Yes.
So it was always great. But recently I was presented with the Legend Award from Guitar Player magazine.
Woo! Yes. You deserve it.
It's huge for me.
About time.
I was the fourth person to receive it. It was Joe Perry, Les Paul, and I can't remember who the third person was, but I was number 4.
Pretty decent company to be in.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you've always been kind of a wild child. And in your memoir, you're very open about the sex and drugs part of rock and roll.
Of course.
Yeah. So what's, out of all of your wild child adventures, what is the one that you remember the most? What's the craziest thing Lita Ford has ever done that you can tell us?
Writing that book.
It is definitely a roller coaster.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's really a great book, and I got to tell you, I probably wouldn't have released it if it not been for HarperCollins and their support.
They're all out here.
Yes, they are here tonight.
I mean, it's definitely it's got some bombshells in it.
Yes, it does. It does. I wouldn't have it any other way.
You're Lita Ford. And I've got to ask, I swear it's the cheapest thing I'll ask you about. But you definitely dish a little bit about your sexcapades. And you mentioned Richie Sambora was pretty, was a high point, but Out of all your adventures in that regard, who is your favorite rock and roll hookup? I know, I just gotta know.
I have a couple of them, actually. I would say Glenn Tipton
Okay.
and Nikki Sixx.
I can see that. I mean, British accent.
Not at the same time. Damn. Pre-marriage, nobody was married at the time.
It was the 80s, my God.
It was the 80s. Yeah.
Were you ever, in your book, you're very candid. You really let us into your life. Were you ever worried about how open you were? Like, you do not hold anything back. Like, were you nervous about putting this out there, or did you just figure, fuck it, I'm Lita Ford?
I had help. It just, there's nothing in there that's wrong or slanderous or defamation of character. It's all true. Nobody was married at the time. We were all just rockers having fun, getting stoned and having sex and jamming.
Yes.
Right, they're down.
Yeah.
A little bit of a serious note. I'm a big Black Sabbath fan, as you were too. And reading the passages about Tony Iommi and some of the things that transpired in your relationship was pretty brutal. And it took a lot of. I think it took a lot of courage to put that out there, because
Yes, it did.
it's rough. Like being a survivor, it's not easy. And what made you want to speak out about the unpleasant aspects of your relationship with him?
Well, Tony Iommi he still is my idol, one of my idols. Him and Ritchie Blackmore were my guitar heroes. He wrote some of the best guitar riffs on the planet, I mean, if not for Black Sabbath, where would we be? Where would Metallica be, or bands like that? Where would I be?
Yeah, none of us would be here.
But he has an angry side to him that I think he was not the guitar. He is the guitar hero that I thought he would be, but he's not the person I'd hoped he would be. That he learned things from his family growing up, mainly his father, who was abusive to his mother. And he took that, and he could have chose not to be like that, but he didn't. And I don't think the drugs helped. Of course.
You're amazing, Lita!
Yes. Yes, you are. Woo!
Thank you.
They always say you never want to meet your heroes, right? It can be a
It
dangerous
hurt.
thing.
It hurt to know that this guy that I worshipped the ground. I thought he was a god, that he would turn out to be like that. And I was really devastated afterwards, because we were engaged to be married. We were engaged for 2 years. And afterwards, I went on a drinking binge, and because he didn't want me to drink, but it was okay to do blow and take Placidils and whatever, these things. But I just, I was very hurt. And I went out and got a tattoo and went on a drinking binge.
Thankfully, you survived and you went on to kick ass until right now.
Yeah,
To this day.
yeah.
So it's a wonderful story, and I think you're very, very brave for being like, this is the truth. This is what happens. And another thing, as far as my last serious life, I think last year your former bandmate, the Runaways, Jamie Foxx, she came out with some allegations of being sexually abused by your former manager, producer Kim Fowley. And I was looking at the story, and I realized that you're basically the only one who stood up and was like, well, I believe her. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like you talk about your relationship with him in the book, and it seemed like you guys got on okay, but he seemed, maybe not, he wasn't an angel. But I just thought, it's just really important that someone like you was like, well, no, everyone else is pussyfooting around it, but this isn't okay. Like,
Yeah.
she survived too.
Yeah, it was, I was not there, thank God, because I think I would have clobbered Kim with something.
Yeah.
But,
Get the boots out.
get the boots out. But I didn't know anything about it, honestly, until Jackie had said it in the press. And
A punch in the gut to see that. Jesus.
and she said it after he passed away. But I've read somewhere, doing research on child abuse, which is my cause. There's some people have causes for cancer, which is another one of my causes. But child abuse is one that people don't stand up for enough. And I believe Jackie was a child when this happened. And the reason why she comes out now, after Kim is not here anymore, he's passed away, he's not here to defend himself, is because she feels, well, I don't know about Jackie, but a person that is raped or sexually molested, they feel safe that the perpetrator is not able to come back and hurt them.
Right, because women that come forward after being abused are not always treated in the most favorable light by the media or other people. It's difficult to come out and talk about those things.
Free Kesha.
Yeah.
Real love.
Yeah.
So, and you have survived so much, and you always portrayed this very strong, confident image. And this book really lays your soul bare. Like, we get to know, like, your more vulnerable moments, like some of the more difficult things you've gone through. And was there anything that you just didn't feel ready to put in there, or did you just throw it all out there?
Well, there's a lot that's not in there. It leaves a lot. It says a lot without actually saying it.
Right. You've had some recent complex things with like your ex and all that. I can totally understand you not wanting to get into that in the book.
Screw him.
But besides all that, was there anything you felt wasn't good enough for the book, or was a little too much for the book?
No, I think I did pretty good. I think I loaded it up.
Yeah.
Yes, it was I read the whole thing in 4 hours. You can't put it down.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, you're a really good storyteller. It reads like your diary. Like she was saying, she read it. And there's so many of our favorite rock and roll legends, like Lemmy's White Line Fever. Like, wow, we had help. But this book is pure Lita.
Awesome.
It really shows.
Thank you.
And so one of the other things that stood out was we were talking about poison and the way they treated the groupies. Could you tell us about that? Just the way that Poison were with their groupies, because it was such a, I mean, you wouldn't really expect that much from Poison, but it was definitely a bummer to read.
Really?
I wouldn't expect them to be like, nice gentlemen,
No. Well, Brett is. I mean, they're wonderful. They're really, now we're good friends, and we tour together a lot, me and
Right.
Brett, and I just love him to death now. But back then, I didn't really know them that well, and I stayed to myself a lot when we were on tour. But they would have these bizarre parties, and where it was just packed full of women, and they would take the pick of the litter, do whatever they wanted to do. But towards the end of the show, the end of the tour, they had pulled some pranks on me.
I love this story.
I got really pissed, really upset, and I wanted to I jumped off the stage. We were on stage in Dallas, Texas. It was the last day of the tour, and like I said, I didn't hang out with them. I didn't really know them. And they dumped cream, a bucket of whipped cream on me from the ceiling. They tied up my roadie, and he was duct taped to this chair, and they lowered him from the lighting truss. And I'm looking at him thinking, what are you doing up there? So then the whipped cream comes down, and it was just too much. It was too much. It ruined our show. The fans didn't know what was going on. And I got pissed off, and I took Brett's mic. I was using Brett's mic that night, and I threw it as hard as I could over the drums back towards the backdrop. and it hit the top of the backdrop and fell down. Nobody could find Brett's mic, but they could hear people walking around. And then I continued after that. It didn't stop.
Oh,
I destroyed the whole backstage area.
Yes.
No spoilers, but it's a good story. What's your favorite band to tour with back in the day? Like, who were your buddies?
Well, after 2 years went by after that, I was at a recording studio. It was late at night, and I was walking into the studio, and I saw a shadow walking towards me, and it was Brett. And I thought, oh God, we're gonna pass each other. And there was nobody else around. So he's walking towards me, and I'm looking down at the ground, and I'm thinking, how am I gonna get around him? What am I gonna say? He gets up close to me, and I stopped, and I stood right in front of him and blocked him. And he looked at me like I was gonna hit him. Put my hand out like this, and he shook my hand. We gave each other a hug, and we've been buddies ever since. So I think Brett is a good friend.
I guess what happens in the 80s stays in the 80s.
Or it goes in Lita's book.
The foreword to the book is written by Dee Snider, who's definitely an old buddy of yours. And you have a lot in common. You're both like very family oriented. You're not as crazy as you used to be. And how did you meet up with him again? Like, how did he end up writing the foreword to your book? It's really sweet.
Well, we went through a few people. We thought about asking Nikki and asking a few different people, but Dee knew me as a mom, and he knew me as a wife, and he knew my kids. My kids played with his kids, and he also knew me as a rocker, because we toured together in 1983, 1984. So I've known Dee for years, for decades. And I thought he would be the perfect person to write the foreword, because it touches on all those different things. My family,
All the important things.
yes.
And with the rock and roll in there too.
And definitely the rock and roll.
You have to have both. So, can you pinpoint the most satisfying moment of your career? It was a tough one. You've toured with everyone. You've toured arenas. You've won Grammys. Like all sorts of amazing things. So, what's been the best one so far?
Well, I know one of them is finishing the book for sure.
It's an undertaking for sure, and it's like almost 300 pages. There's a lot in there.
Definitely. This is a first for me. I've never done a book before, never written a book before. And I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of my band, my management, for their support, for HarperCollins, their support. I couldn't have done it without them. So this is a milestone for me.
It seems like you have a really good team behind you. So in the book you mentioned you've had all kinds of different business relationships. That some worked, some that did not work. Like you're finally working with people that get you, I guess, after all this time.
Yeah, it didn't, it was just difficult trying to find someone who understood.
Right, because you were such an anomaly back then. You were the first, you're the OG.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
What keeps you going? Like you went away, you were, just all about family in the Caribbean for ages, and you just decided you needed to come back. You needed to go for it again.
Yeah.
Like what's pushing you on now? 'Cause you've done so much.
Yeah.
Like what's left on your to-do list?
Well, we've got a tour coming up on April 1st with Hailstorm. We're going to be touring with them.
And the new record, right?
We have a new record coming out April 15th.
It's like a new old record, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's really cool. I went back to the Caribbean, and everything was roped off and chained off, and there was security guarding the house. And I'm like, this is my house. I lived here for almost a decade. You're going to tell me I can't get into my own house? The locks had been changed, and I broke in.
Yeah.
I took a tire iron and I ripped off the hinges It's my house, it's my door, it's my
Yep.
hinges. So I broke in and I grabbed 15 analog 24-track tapes, which have incredible musicians on, incredible songs. We took the tapes and transferred them to digital, and we were going to release an album in mid-April called Lita Ford's Time Capsule.
Yeah. Woo!
We just streamed a song off on Noisy today, just so you know. So plug my shit.
Cool.
I know you've got a lot of big names on there. Like Gene Simmons is on there. You've got Bruce Kulick. Like,
Yeah.
do you have any Kiss stories?
Oh,
I feel like everyone has a Kiss story at this point.
of course. Well, I don't know. I knew Kiss when I was in the Runaways. We all kind of hung out together. I was always trying to get in Paul's pants. He never let me.
They're pretty tight pants.
Yeah. It was so hot back then. I wasn't old enough.
To stop you from becoming a rock star, but I guess in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it'd be a silly question to ask if we're ever gonna do a Runaways reunion, right?
I would love it. I'm all for it. I just waiting on Joe.
You can always cross fingers, right?
Yes, definitely.
So I think it's almost time for me to give you to the people, but I want to know. I have two things. One thing, which I think is very important, is what advice can you give girls and young women that want to rock, that want to pick up a guitar or a bass or drums or a microphone, that maybe think they can't or think they shouldn't or think is weird? Like, what advice could you give them? You've seen and done it all, and you're like, you're the lady, you know? Like, you know better than anyone.
If you have a vision and you have a dream, you want to play guitar or play drums or anything that's musical, there's no reason why you can't. I mean, we all have, musical. If you have fingers and I've seen people play with no fingers down in California. There's a guy that plays with his toes.
Look at Django. Come on.
I mean, it's insane. And then people like Jeff Healey, God rest his soul, who couldn't see, a blind guitar player. I mean, he was amazing. It's amazing. There's nothing stopping anybody from following their dreams. Follow your heart. If you see a light at the end of that tunnel, then go get it. There's nothing. Don't let anything stop you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, do it.
Absolutely.
And finally, I just want to thank you, because with all of the things that you've done and how hard you've worked and the things originals, and without you, metal would be a lot different. And I have a feeling it wouldn't be half as awesome.
That's
So
right.
thank you. Thank you.
Good stuff, Kim. Good stuff.
No Q&A.
No Q&A?
No.
Really?
Yeah, we're just gonna sign.
Okay.
Want to sign?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you have some questions real quick, maybe you can get her. Can we more?
Yes.
She's really stoked.
I'm totally stoked. First of all, you are fucking gorgeous.
Yes.
Look at that leather.
Much like Kim, thank you so much for everything you've done. But obviously, so many stories to tell. But like, what did it take for you to just sit down and write them? Like, what kind of tea did you drink? Like, what did you do to just like, okay, I'm gonna write my fucking memoirs? What is
Oh, I drank a lot of tea. I just went through my life, and we found a place to start. It starts at my 16th birthday party, where the cops come and and then it goes back and we reminisce through my early years. But there's a lot of stories in trying to get them all in chronological order and get them correct and get the dates correct. I think that was the hard part. Thank God for Google and Wikipedia. And they're not always right, so you can't really depend on them 100% either. That was a hard part.
All right, I guess she's all yours now. If you want to line up and get a piece of the middle queen.
Woo!